What is up? What is new? Welcome into the double FU, the FU times two, the fantasy football universe. I am Jeremy Schulman, your host at FF_Rebel. We are the fantasy football universe. You can find us everywhere. We are on Twitter. We are on YouTube. We are all over the map, Reddit, TikTok. Please like and subscribe if you like the content. But today we're going to get into our ranking show and talk a little bit about where we have some of these consensus guys ahead of the Thursday night matchup coming up here in a few hours and ahead of your weekend. But first, it's been a crazy week for us. Jesse's out of power, so he's out of the mix. We hope he gets all of his stuff sorted real soon. We got SC and Aaron away. My computer and internet's not working. It's hailing outside. We got some storms over here in Amsterdam, and it is midnight. Who cares? We still ride here at the FFU, and we are going to give you everything you need to get ready for rankings. This is from Jamie. Jamie says, what do we think about Roshan? Swift was limited with a groin. Yeah, he was limited yesterday. It's a Wednesday practice report. This is the more serious practice report here on Thursday. Is Roshan someone that you need to play? I don't know if he's something you need to play, but let's get into it and talk about our consensus rankings at RB. And Jamie, I promise I will answer your question about Roshan when we get there in just a couple of minutes. So our consensus ranks here, again, we'll go 6 at a time, and we'll talk a little bit about these matchups, what we like and what we don't. And we'll start with Saquon Barkley at RB1, Devon Achane at 2, Christian McCaffrey at 3, Joe Mixon at 4, Jahmyr Gibbs at 5, and Derrick Henry at 6. Mixon doesn't have the best matchup against Tennessee, but it's not bad at all. And he's been on an absolute heater. Joe Mixon is... I dare say he's like RB2 or 1 on the season for games he's played because he did miss a few. So that would be RB1 points per game. I have to check that. I'm not going to be able to check it now because I'm doing 100 different things, but he's RB5 on the season, and Joe Mixon has missed 3.5 games. So really 4 games when you put together. Week 2, he only played 50%, and week 6. So we'll call it 3 and be safe there. Joe Mixon is amazing, and he gets Tennessee this week. So, again, not a fearsome defense that you have to worry about. Not the best matchup here, but you cannot deny Joe Mixon and what he's doing on Houston. He's really the only consistent part of that offense. That offensive line struggles, so Joe Mixon really is the battering ram that they use. He is... Since he came back from injury in week 6, RB2, 4, 6, 13, 7, and 1. Joe Mixon doing Joe Mixon things, except in a much better situation with Bobby Slowick calling the plays. So it's been amazing for him. There's no secret here that Joe Mixon's been crushing it. And then Christian McCaffrey at 3. He really should probably do 1. He hasn't scored a touchdown this year. I have to double check that because that sounds wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is correct. Oddly enough, he has not scored a touchdown this year in 2 games against Tampa, not a good defense, and Seattle, not a good defense. So, of course, against Green Bay, he's going to go off and score 3 touchdowns here. Christian McCaffrey, another guy that you cannot deny here. Devon Achane at 2, just getting all the work. New England, terrible run defense. And Derrick Henry is slightly further down the range, fading him all the way to 6, just because the Chargers can do a few things and stop the run. Moving from 7 to 12 here, we got Kenneth Walker versus Arizona at 7. James Conner in the same game at 8. Josh Jacobs at 9. Tyrone Tracy in the top 10 of running backs this week. Brian Robinson Jr. at 11. And Kyron, who we talked about earlier, at 12. Let me just double check Kyron's stats here because I want to make sure that it is still the case that he hasn't scored in a month. No, he hasn't scored in the last 3 games because he hasn't scored a touchdown on the ground in the last month. Back in week 8 against Minnesota, he did go 5 for 7 through the air for just 19 yards, but he did catch a touchdown pass in that one. But yeah, the last 3 games has not found the end zone. He's getting there on volume, but Kyron is the ultimate volume play. If he does not score, then it's a problem for him. You know what also happened 3 weeks ago that correlates with Kyron not scoring touchdowns? Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua back in action. We saw exactly what happened there. Just opens up the passing game. Sean McVay gets to do exactly what he wants to do. Matthew Stafford is a perennial All-Pro, potential Hall of Fame candidate, depending on the numbers he ends up with at the end of his illustrious career and having that Super Bowl. So, yeah, Matthew Stafford, super, super good, obviously. So, unfortunately, it's been limiting Kyron with weapons back. But yeah, James Conner at Seattle, I think he's in a smash spot. Obviously, we just talked about the fact that you can do whatever you want in Seattle, but you can run all over this this defense. The interesting thing too is that Seattle should keep up, but Arizona's defense has been much better of late. We'll see if that continues against Ben Grubb and what he's trying to do with that offense and Geno Smith at the helm in Seattle. But yeah, this could be a shootout. I'm thinking this is a bit lower scoring with James Conner getting kind of his normal workload. James Conner, the question was posed earlier, who's a buy low? James Conner is I think a premier buy low. Interesting notes about James Conner, and let's switch this to half as my computer loads. Other than last week is on buy. Other than 2 weeks ago against the Jets, he was in the last month, the RB 15, 19, 18, so wasn't really getting there. And then he was the RB3 going off against the Jets, catching that long, I forget if it was a screen or a swing pass for a touchdown. So, yeah, James Conner has a nice schedule coming up. 2 games against Seattle in the next 3 weeks. He's got Carolina in week 16. He's got the Rams in week 7, New England in 15. So he's got a lot of nice matchups ahead. And it starts here. If you can buy James Conner ahead of this game, I would do that. Tyrone Tracy at 10 against Tampa. Tyrone Tracy is Mr. Necessary. I think he's just going to get fed as many times as humanly possible. Sean Stilello, or whatever his name is, the agent for Tommy DeVito, is going to come out into the field and just, tell Palmy to hand the ball to Tyrone Tracy to hit him in the flat. They're going to have to use him. They're going to have to use Wandale and keep things closer to the vest to do anything in Tommy DeVito's first start. I don't think Darius Slayton is much of an option, even though he should be. Malik Neighbors, you would assume, but we'll just have to see what Tommy DeVito can do behind a not good Giants offensive line. And then Brian Robinson at 11 against Dallas. This is a smash spot for Brian Robinson. I know we love Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler getting there on the pass attempts and in the passing game, not getting there on the ground when Brian Robinson is back. So something to consider there as well. Let's move on and talk about running backs 13 through, what do we got? Let's do some quick math. 18 here. Aaron Jones at 13 at Chicago, Najee at 14, David Montgomery 15, Kareem Hunt 16, Jonathan Taylor 17, and Ramondre Stevenson at 18. Najee against Cleveland is in a smash spot. It's hard to put Najee this high often. He usually sits in, running back RB, 17, 18, or even in the low 20s. Jaylen Warren's also back, so that could cut into his workload. We saw Warren have a decent game last week, but Najee continues to get it done. And like we said, these are his half PPR finishes in the last month: 16, 16, 18, and 17 at the running back position. He's getting there while scoring touchdowns and not scoring touchdowns. But what's interesting last week, if he had scored, he would have been an RB1, because not only did he have 63 yards on the ground, he had 30 through the air on 4 receptions. Almost a 100-yard day for Najee Harris against Baltimore, of all teams. Now he gets Cleveland. They're going to absolutely run all over him. And it's going to be super, super interesting to discuss. I'm going to run through a list of names here and just talk about a few running backs that strike me. The first one is Bucky Irving at 19 against the Giants. I'm going to talk all about Bucky Irving in just a second. Chuba at 20 against KC. Bad matchup. He's been balling, though. You fire him up anyway. I don't love the matchup. Who cares? Chuba's been absolute godsend. I know Jonathan Brooks is back. Do I expect Jonathan Brooks to play this week? Maybe. I'm not sure. We'll have to see what exactly happens. Do I expect him to be active this week? Probably. Do I know he's already active, as opposed to meaning, like, do I expect him to be a healthy scratch right before game time? Not necessarily. Do I think Carolina should be integrating him in a little bit more slowly, especially against the best defense in the league? Yes. Carolina should have um, no assumptions that they're going to win this game. No delusions that they're going to win this game against Kansas City. They do want to see what Jonathan Brooks has, but please, Dave Canales, just take it easy with Jonathan Brooks a little bit. You just gave Chuba all this money. Jonathan Brooks makes pennies. That could be part of rolling out Jonathan Brooks 20 times. I don't know. But yeah, Chuba slightly lower than we would like to see this week. 21 Eckler, Javante 22, Pollard 23, DeAndre Swift 24, J.K. Dobbins 25 against Baltimore. Revenge game, yes. Incredibly tough matchup, yes. But the Los Angeles Chargers offensive line has been absolutely balling out this year, especially in the run game, but really overall as a unit everywhere. So that's a really interesting one. I'm excited to see it. I think Gus eats in a little bit. I think JK probably scores, but his rushing total is a little bit lower. We saw what Najee did. 93 total yards, did not score against Baltimore last week. I think that's possible for JK. He can get there in yardage. He can get there if he gets in the end zone. I'm just not sure that both of those things are going to correlate in the same game against a tough team. Tony Pollard is at Houston, so he's 23. I like Tony Pollard in his upcoming schedule. Houston has not been a phenomenal defense, but this Tennessee offense is reeling. We'll see which Will Levis shows up in this game. They are not playing at home, so that's a bit of a concern for this offense. But who goes off is the question. Is Tony Pollard going to be the one? By goes off, we're using that term very loosely. Going off, being who becomes an RB or wide receiver 2, I guess, is going to be Tony Pollard who finishes at RB 15 with a touchdown and nice yards, or is it going to be Calvin Ridley? I do not think they've done it both in the same game. That's something I'll have to check out. But certainly in the last month, it seems like it's one or the other, with Ridley tending to win that matchup more often than not. Tajay Spears also a lot more involved. I think that continues, but there's not a lot of other pieces there. So just depends what Will Levis can do. The answer usually is not much. Let's talk about Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving is our RB19. He is at the New York Giants. We know the New York Giants defense is fine. It's not good. They're kind of just okay. But at the running back position, let's see, what are they giving up? They're middle of the road to giving up everything except for locking down the tight end, which we talked about. And we'll talk about K-Dot in a little bit more here. But I think Bucky Irving is the really, really interesting play. I know he didn't have a great week the last time we saw him on the field, which I believe was 2 weeks ago. Just pulling up his logs here. Yeah, he had the bye last week. Sorry. So last time we saw him on the field, he was against San Francisco, was RB6. So he absolutely crushed. 13 on the ground for 73 yards and a touchdown, and 3 of 3 through the air for 14 yards. The interesting thing about Bucky Irving, 37, 3, and 3 targets over the last month. And he's also scoring on the ground, 2 touchdowns in his last 4 games, 3 in his last 5. Bucky Irving has been utilized a ton, and it's really this game script thing where if Tampa is in plus scripts, it tends to be a little bit more Bucky. We saw that they were crushing San Francisco somehow back in week 10. And if they need to get more in the passing game, Bucky is involved. But of course, that becomes Rachaad White. Rachaad White is getting there on the scoring in the passing game, which is not sustainable. But the other thing is these game scripts and what we can predict. And Tampa Bay, I've been trying to get Bucky Irving everywhere. It's impossible. He's too expensive, but for good reason. Not only is he balling out, but he gets the Giants, Carolina, Vegas, the Chargers, Dallas, and Carolina to close out the fantasy season. Other than the Chargers, that schedule is absolutely sweet. I believe Fantasy Pros calls it the #1 RB schedule for rest of season. And it is here for Bucky Irving. I think he goes off in this game. I think he goes off in the next 6 games and absolutely wins people's leagues. Bucky Irving is a guy that you want to have, and he's our RB19 this week. Let's talk more about, let's see, Jalen Warren. Again, he's at 26 for us. We talked about Najee. Jalen Warren, same things apply. I think Arthur Smith is absolutely going to be in his bag against Cleveland. I would not be surprised if Pittsburgh puts up 40 points on Cleveland this week. We'll see. That defense has been abysmal. I don't know what to expect. They are at Cleveland. You would hope they have some pride here. It's it's one of these interdivisional matchups where we saw last week, right? Pittsburgh, 2 weeks ago, they were balling out, and the Ravens, you can throw all over them, and their secondary isn't good, and Lamar has been balling out, and everybody kind of let down because it was such a low scoring, typical Steelers Ravens slugfest. That could be the same thing here between Pittsburgh and Cleveland, another interdivisional matchup. But I don't think so. I think Pittsburgh absolutely runs all over them. I think it's the Warren and Najee show, little Pickens sprinkled in, and a few guys get there. So I have no reservations about firing up Warren in the flex where you need him, especially with 6 teams on bye. Got Rachaad White at 27 again against the Giants. It's possible Rachaad White gets there. I prefer Bucky this week, obviously. We all do, but just to kind of illustrate the point with White, last week he was the RB8 in half PPR scoring, while Bucky Irving was the RB6 because once again he got there through the air. Rachaad White has been seeing some insane volume through the air in the last month. 6, 3, and 7 targets over the last month. But in 3 of those 4 games, he scored. In one game, he scored multiple touchdowns through the air. He scored in every game in the last month because when he didn't get there through the air against Kansas City, he did punch it in on 3 carries with 1 touchdown on the ground against Kansas City. So, yeah, Rachaad White has been great. Bucky Irving has been great. I just think these games now tend to align more to Bucky. We've seen him kind of take over more of the share, especially in the running game. I think that continues, and I think the Bucks are going to be able to run, as we just discussed their schedule. Rico Dowdle at 28, yuck, against Washington. It's a really tough spot. Offense is terrible with Cooper Rush. They were good decent last week. We saw what they could do, but I think that's their ceiling as opposed to what we should expect every week. And they're gonna get their asses handed to them in Washington this week. I think. Estime at 29. We agree it is Javante's world. But people are still high on Estime. And one thing that's nice is Denver could absolutely crush Las Vegas this week. Estime could get a lot of mop-up duty, which is why we have him so high. But yes, I do think it is Javante. There's been a lot of talk of hot hand. Is it Javante? Is it Estime? Jaleel gets mixed in, McLaughlin from time to time. But yeah, I think Javante is the one to bet on. Estime, not a terrible play this week if you have to. And Roschon Johnson at RB30. That's about it that we're going to talk about the running back position. I'll mention a few more guys, but I do want to get to, I think we had a Roschon question. Jamie, I think it was you. Let's see. Bear with me 1 second, because I did say we were going to talk about Roschon. I can't find it, but we're just going to talk about Roschon anyway. Interesting that DeAndre Swift has been dealing with this injury. Roschon Johnson then has the opportunity to be the lead back. We saw what he could do in a split committee last week. He finishes the RB20 because he scored a touchdown, but just 10 for 33 against Green Bay. Minnesota is no slouch when it comes to defense. Brian Flores has been able to, they had a great opening to the season. They faltered a little bit in the middle, and now they're kind of getting back to their defensive ways against New England, against Green Bay. Sorry, that's Chicago. I don't have the Minnesota schedule in front of me, but Minnesota has been balling over the last couple of weeks. Roschon Johnson, the question is, can he get there? He's not much of a receiving threat, or at least hasn't been this year. He's been utilized that way by the Bears in the past. The question is Roschon able to do that again? Will he be doing that again? I don't know. But I don't want to bet on it against Minnesota. Can you flex Roschon Johnson? Yes. Would I recommend flexing Roschon Johnson? No. I think to Jamie's point earlier, which I think I can find it now because I know I'm looking for Swift. Since Swift is out, Jamie's question was, here we go. Is Roshan a top 20 RB this week? We do need to adjust our ranks to account for Swift if he misses. If he misses, we will adjust them. Is he top 20? I think that's a little rich for me. I will move him up. He's 30 right now. I would move him up to probably 23, 24. He'd be right there on the fringe for sure. But this Bears, I mean, we saw what happened to this Bears offense 2 weeks ago against New England. They were absolutely crushed. I think it was 3 total points for them. That's something that could very much happen again here. I don't think Minnesota's defense is that difficult to play against, but yeah, it's tricky. So yeah, top 20. I think it's close. I think you can absolutely make the case. I'm not going to make that case. I will have him just outside of the top 20. Yeah, it's a close one. But look, you might have to fire him up, and if you got to flex him, especially if the Swift is out, you could do a lot worse. Yeah, Cleveland has no. Yeah, well, yeah, we see it, and they certainly have no shame going out and getting Deshaun Watson. So we'll see what happens here. Who are the Eagles playing is the question. Brain, let me know who the Eagles are playing, and I'll think about that one. Light snow is not. I have to see it. Just have a look at it, see what you feel. I get it. You know, the slippery conditions, the ball's wet. I understand. But Boswell kicked 6 field goals last week, man. And we got a similar situation here. So yeah, Eagles against the Rams. Yeah, I don't hate it. Look, I think these guys are probably interchangeable. I'm not chasing Boswell's points by any means, but Cleveland defense is just so bad. You can beat them through the air. You can beat them on the ground. Cleveland is the reason that Taysom Hill had a historic day last week. He absolutely torched them in every conceivable fashion. And not enough is being talked about how bad this Cleveland defense has been all around. It's kind of inexplicable, but they can't cover anybody. They can't seem to rush the passer. They're not good in the ground game. I think once I've been sitting on this one for a week, so bear with me. But I think when JOK went down, this defense became a JOKE. I just wanted to say that live on air. But yeah, it hasn't been good. We know Deshaun Watson is done. Jameis is out there slinging it because what the hell else are they going to do? Kevin Stefanski, I don't think is long for this job. Andrew Berry as well. I think it's probably a clean house sort of situation. I'm not sure that there's much left to play for anyone. Is a situation where they lost pride? Yes, but at the same time, I think I put that more on players than the city or the team. I just think there's a lot of lame ducks here outside of Myles Garrett. You got the coaching staff, you got the quarterbacks. Yeah, you probably got the running backs as well. So a lot of lame ducks here in Cleveland, and they're just terrible. They're just terrible. There's nothing else to say about that. Let's move on from these running backs, but we'll mention a few more here. That was our top 30. Nick Chubb, I don't want anything to do with. Isaiah Pacheco, we have him at 33. He might play. It's interesting. I don't know what the hell Kansas City is thinking about playing Isaiah Pacheco. He was a limited participant, but that was a Wednesday. So we'll have to see what his practice reports say today. If Isaiah Pacheco is active and playing, I'm not going to fear Kareem Hunt. In fact, Kareem Hunt is not. I have not mentioned him in these rankings. I might need to move. I don't see him. So without taking up too much time, Kareem Hunt will probably be higher than Isaiah Pacheco in my personal rankings this week. I think Pacheco will be used sparingly. Can he come back and get 20 touches? Yeah, he's an animal. Would the Chiefs be stupid to do that? Yes. Like, what are we doing? We saw how inept the Chiefs have been on offense over the last couple of weeks facing good defenses. They barely won the game against Denver. They got crushed by the Bills. It's bad right now in Kansas City. I know they need Isaiah Pacheco, but they're 9-1. They're making the playoffs. They're, if they win out, yes, they get a bye. But I think that what's more important is that keeping your guys healthy for the playoffs. Maybe he's fully healthy. Maybe they're happy with his position, but Kareem Hunt has been balling out. So I don't see why in a meaningless game against Carolina that they're obviously going to win. They could win it with defense alone, and I think they probably will. That said, I think you just roll Kareem Hunt out there. If you want to get Pacheco somewhere, get him the game feel while playing one of the worst teams in the league. Great. I think that's probably what we're looking at here. Pacheco, I think, needs to be lower in the rankings and Hunt higher. And outside of that, can you play Jalen Wright even in a good matchup against New England? Unfortunately, I don't think so. Raheem Mostert, same deal. He just hasn't been used outside of passing downs. I think it is because he is a good pass blocker and the other guys aren't. So I would pass on him. Tajay Spears all the way down at 49. He's interesting. He's a desperation flex at this point. If you have to do it, you have to do it. There are worse options. Amir Abdullah, I'm not doing the Amir Abdullah thing, especially against Denver. I don't care if he's the only guy left standing. I think you need to leave Amir Abdullah on your waiver wire or your bench. Holy crap, that's an hour and 40-minute stream. We're done. We're going to let you go about 30 minutes before kickoff here. This has been the Fantasy Football Universe. We are here live 4 to 5 times a week. We're here Saturday. We do a roundtable with the group, and we talk about dynasty, redraft, potential trade opportunities. People post questions in the chat. We do a lot of start-sit stuff, and then we also do start-sit 90 minutes before game time. We might move that to 60 now, only because things are slowing down. Fewer people are tuning in because I think people are just getting eliminated from the playoffs at this point. So I think we'll do 60 minutes prior now to the 1 p.m. kickoffs. That's Eastern time on Sundays. We're here at Saturday, usually around 3 p.m. Eastern. If you want to join us, and if you want to, thank you, Stephen. If you want to, continue to join us and get notifications of whenever we go live or post a new video, which we do daily. Please like and subscribe on our YouTube. That's what we're trying to grow the most. But we're available on Twitter and X. We're available on TikTok. We're over on Instagram. We've got stuff going on Threads and Blue Sky, and there's another one, Reddit. We're everywhere. So, please find us, engage with us, interact with our content. We appreciate this. We love this stuff. We love talking ball. As you can see, I just did it for an hour and 41 minutes by myself, effectively, but also thanks to your questions. So thank you very much. This has been our Week 12 consensus ranks. I need to stop talking and go do some sort of tea for my throat because I'm done here. But I appreciate you. Good luck tonight. Good luck in Week 12 and your playoff push. And we will see you next time. Listen up.